Well. KU season comes to an end here at the booth against Utah, 31-21. Kansas will finish the year 5-7, and we're going to talk about it. This is the Pay Podcast, a live edition of the show, live from David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. I'm Nick Springer, here with Kevin Flaherty. Of course, we're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible, member FDIC. Kansas finishes the year 5-7. How about this? Somebody said hi, Kevin. How about that?
Hey.
Look at that. Kevin has his own fans. How about that? Desperado says, he throws myself for another kick in the nuts. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Desperado, were you one of the guys with the shirt off in the shirtless?
Yeah, that's true.
section?
Yeah, we have the shirtless contingent. Look at that. Kevin's all dressed up. How about that? We'll try to maybe give you some hopium at some point over the course of this show. But obviously, yeah, the mood is a little bit down after today's game. Kansas at home against Utah. And unfortunately, a game that truthfully has played out similarly to many other Kansas games this season, where KU does give you a lot of hope. Kansas even has the lead in the fourth quarter, and you're thinking, wow, okay, maybe this is the game where KU can break through and secure what would be a significant win. And then it all spirals out of control, and Kansas ends up losing by double digits. So it's kind of funny how that worked out, I guess, that this game really did unfold, I think, similar to what we've seen from previous KU games. And that's kind of the biggest takeaway, I guess, is it almost feels like a movie script at this point. This is just how things go for KU. You go from up 14-10 with a chance to make it a two-possession game to down 17-14 in the span of 5 plays, to then looking at a chance to possibly, retake the lead again to down 24-14. And then again, you have a chance to make it. It's 24-21. Your defense needs to make a stop. You can't do it. Ultimately, you lose the game. So I guess more of the same. Kansas finishes 5-7, but Kevin, what were your takeaways from today's game?
My takeaway was what Lob Threat said, the deja vu. I had somebody in my mention saying, they just keep finding new ways to lose. But honestly, Nick, this felt like the same old way to lose. When you look at, the turnovers that happen in the red zone, Kansas hasn't been a great team at generating points and has put the ball at risk in the red zone. When you look at the fact that you get into a spot where your defense has played relatively well, and then all of a sudden you have a chance to get a stop where if you can get off the field, you have a chance to win. The defense can't get off the field. The defense played pretty well for stretches, gave up too many explosives, and the offense, the passing game was too inconsistent in this one. And so it didn't feel to me like it was finding a new way to lose, Nick. You even had the Jaylen Daniels. I think he was trying to throw that ball away, and it was very similar to the pick that he threw against Missouri, where he tried to throw it away, just couldn't quite get enough on it and wound up, throwing an interception there. And so it felt like it was the same ways that they've been losing. There were people asking before the game what kind of effort they were going to see in this one. And Nick, I do not doubt the effort. I think that they honestly really battled and fought in this one. I think the effort level was good, but the other part of that is you have to play clean football, and that means not missing tackles. It means playing your assignments on defense, and it certainly means don't turn the ball over, don't miss field goals, all of the things that go along with that. The effort was great. The playing clean football and what they needed to do to beat Utah today, that was where they fell short ultimately.
Desperado 9552 says, I was one of the shirtless contingent. Shout out to you. He said, I love the show. Appreciate everything you guys do. Time for another beer. Yeah, that could be true too. But shout out to that. Yeah, the shirtless contingent. I was trying to do some quick math. Obviously, I'm not great at math because I'm a journalism major, but I mean, it looked like that I got up to about 50, 60 people over there, getting active with the shirtless contingent. So shout out to Desperado for being one of those. So, and in terms of Jaylen Daniels, the human, you feel for him, right?
Yeah, he's a great kid.
This is your last game.
He's up for 2 national awards that basically are a combination of football and being a great person or whatever.
Yeah,
so yeah, great kid, but
yeah, it's your last game. You feel for him as a human. Like it's your last game at the booth. You've given so much to this program, and we've talked about it. He's definitely somebody that is a big reason why KU has gotten to the status that they are. But unfortunately for Jaylen Daniels, the player, this was more of the same of what we've seen this season, where just critical back-breaking mistakes and somewhat boneheaded decision making and just boneheaded plays. It's so frustrating, So I totally understand that sentiment from fans, that of what he's brought. But yeah, man, the interception in the back of the end zone where it's a smart decision in theory. Like, hey, you're rolling out to your right, nobody's really open, just go ahead and throw it away. They would have been, I think, 3rd down and goal after that incomplete pass.
If he was throwing it away.
Yeah, if he was throwing it away.
There was Emmanuel Henderson, I think, out there. Henderson kind of cut in, and so maybe he was trying to give Henderson a chance, and Henderson left. But either way, that's a play where in that situation, you got to put that thing into the stand.
Yeah, exactly. The question really is, if he was trying to throw it away, man,
you didn't do it.
You got to do a better job. Like you
just
simply, you have to make sure that ball, nobody has a chance at it, right? If you're trying to do it. And on the flip side, it kind of circles back to what we talked about, which is if he wasn't trying to throw it away, he was trying to get to Emmanuel Henderson. It's one of those moments where it's like, man, you're trying to play hero ball, right? Just
make that decision.
Just don't let that happen, right? So obviously very frustrating. And then on the interception, on the pick six, Kevin, you mentioned it to me kind of as it unfolded after the fact that you didn't like anything about it. Right?
I hated all of it. I hated the play call. I hated that Cam Pickett wasn't even looking. Like I do think that he was somewhat at fault for that. And then Jaylen Daniels' decision. I thought that all 3 parts were bad. And it was interesting because our colleague Kent Swanson over at KCSN showed the replay and basically said, hey, this is on the receiver, also on the play call for being too predictable. I agree with him. But also, I don't like the decision by Jaylen Daniels there. And so I think that I didn't like any part of that. I thought it was really predictable, like you said. The other part is if you watch the play, it looks like a receiver is going to block out there for Pickett, and then he kind of cuts back in on like an in-breaking pivot route. I think the pivot route would have been open if Jaylen had held on to that ball another second or two. I think that he would have been able to find that. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the play call. Wasn't a fan of Cam Pickett not even looking at the quarterback. I'm guessing he was running a route out there, right?
Yeah. Well,
and then Jaylen Daniels making that decision.
Yeah, and early in the game, KU had run basically the exact same play to Cam Pickett in the flat. I think actually on the opening drive of the game, and it got 20+ yards. It worked very well.
Yeah.
They tried it again later in the game, and Utah was ready for it. And then they just went back to the well too many times. I think on that particular
I agree.
play. If that's what you're trying to draw up, right? Like if that's what you were trying to come up with, it was just too predictable, right? Like, okay, you had just run it up the middle 2 times in a row and gotten stopped. Like, what's the defense that you're going to do? Well, you're probably going to go back to, throwing the football. And in that case, okay, throwing it into the flat into Cam Pickett. So, yeah, it was really just battle around. And again, I think the worst part of it is you would hope that your senior quarterback that's been in this program for as long as he has been would have a little bit more composure in that moment to recognize or understand and not make that play. But yeah, ultimately that was really kind of the backbreaker, right? Which is, again, I mean, Kansas gets inside the Utah 25, 5 times in the game, only ends up scoring once.
It wound up being something like 7, but they did get 2, I think.
Yeah, they got the one late to make it 21, to make it 24-21 on the pass to Leighton Kira, which shout out to Leighton Kira. It was senior day for him too.
Senior day for Leighton Kira. He gets his first career touchdown.
Yeah, first career touchdown. And then Nate also, I think, highlights here something that you mentioned, Kevin, as well, which is Zeke Marshall, man. Like, he'd been doing well when he was on the field.
Career high 5 carries. You give him one in the red zone, and he gets down to sort of the half-inch line.
Yeah, you hated to see that.
And then Jaylen gets the touchdown right after that. But no, with 3rd and 5 in that situation with where you're at, or 3rd and goal from the 5, I guess it was right about. I would have seriously considered when you had that 1st and goal from the 10, putting Zeke in and giving somebody something there, because I do think, as good a runner as Jaylen is, and he did have a good day running the ball, I think that Zeke's legs add that extra dimension. And so when you saw Jaylen, how many times today did you see Jaylen hand the ball off and he would sort of boot off, and no Utah guys were going with him.
Yeah, they were not respecting Jaylen
and so I think, if you put Zeke in, you're getting a different reaction. That maybe opens things up for other guys, even when Zeke doesn't have the ball, inside the red zone. And so I would have liked to see him get another few plays inside the red zone there too.
Yeah, I agree. Like he looked really good when he was on the field. Had some really nice runs. I guess maybe that's a little bit of hopium if you're looking towards the future. But yeah, not enough really. Probably not enough usage of him late, right? And you talked about it. Utah has Burt Ficklin, who Ficklin didn't end up really getting used too much in this game either. He finished with 2 carries?
2 carries, which he had been. I think he had one game with 6 and one game with 7.
And he had 3 touchdowns.
In their last 2.
Yeah, and 3 touchdowns against K-State.
Yeah.
And so I know you had mentioned even to me during pregame, like, hey, Utah has a second quarterback in Burt Ficklin that they use as sort of a runner. We'd love to see KU kind of replicate that. And in this game, KU kind of did at times, but probably even not enough, really. So
yeah, for sure. I thought I would have liked to see Zeke, get a few more shots in the red zone, especially with the way things are going. And look, Utah's got a really good pass defense, Nick. Like they're a top 25 pass defense in the country, and so you can move the ball, I think, between the 25s, like somebody mentioned. But you get in there, that space gets contracted. I'm not sure you're going to be able to throw the ball. And so they either needed to really utilize Jaylen's legs, inside the 10 or inside the 15, or put Zeke in to utilize his legs as well, because I don't think you were going to have as much of a chance to run the ball.
Well, yeah, truthfully, this game, the game script, or if you look at the stats, kind of unfolded in a way that you would expect Kansas to have a chance to win, which is okay. You're running the ball very well, right?
Yeah.
You had both Le'Shawn Williams and Daniel Highshaw finished with over 100 yards rushing. The difference, unfortunately, is just those back-breaking turnovers and mistakes in the red zone.
Yeah. The thing I would add to Nate's point right there on the read option stuff, not everything KU has that looks like a read option actually is a read option. So, like, it looks like, Jaylen should have kept the ball there, but it's actually just a give the whole way, and it's made to look like a read option. I think there was some of that going on where you're looking at it and you're saying, well, my gosh, that defender dove down. What was he thinking? And it wasn't a read option. I will say Jaylen usually reads option, whether it's read option, zone option, or traditional option. He usually reads that stuff really well. I think there was some stuff today where it wasn't read option. It was just him carrying out sort of the play fake after the handoff. And so it wasn't actually read option stuff. And everybody does that. When I covered Texas, they did the same exact thing, and people would yell at Texas's quarterback, like, why aren't you keeping the ball there? And it turns out it wasn't actually option. It was just, that's what it looked like.
Yeah. And some people in the chat kind of making the comments about Jaylen not really getting better. And yeah, I mean, I think as a leader he improved, but you're right. I mean, he did kind of in 2022, that was kind of his peak, and he just, obviously the injuries, I'm sure, hampered him quite a bit. But
I think 23 Illinois was probably the peak. But it became more of like peaks and valleys with him versus in 2022. It was obviously he'd been so good for Kansas to start the year to get them to 5-0. Yeah.
And it became a lot more peaks and valleys where you saw the individual moments of brilliance for him over the course of the remainder of his career. And, even today, he ends up hitting Manuel Henderson for a couple of deep passes, made a couple nice throws, had a really nice throw where he threw it right over the head of the defender towards the far sideline.
Yeah. You
see those individual moments of brilliance too.
You get down 10, and I think everybody was leaving the stadium like, it's ball game. And he leads a real quick drive down to score a touchdown, hits Leighton Cure, and you still have a chance to win the game if your defense can get a stop. Obviously, that didn't wind up happening, but I'm just saying, even in that situation, he came out, made some good throws, let him down and get a score. But I thought the peak this year was probably a Cincinnati game. If we're talking peaks and valleys, he was brilliant against Cincinnati. Had 500 yards of total offense. Did have the one fumble, but remember, KU got the ball right back on that, so that wasn't something that hurt them that much. And he had one turnover and like 4 touchdowns. You'll usually take that. He had a couple picks, I think, early against Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl, but was unbelievable at the end of the game. But yeah, it's a tough deal. The Cincinnati game was a pretty complete game. The Missouri game, you hit Emmanuel Henderson on a huge third down late to give yourself a chance, and he drops it. you wind up leading the game-winning score against Cincinnati, and your defense gives it right back up. Against Arizona, they went down the field there at the end. He's not in for the 4th and 2 where you wind up trying to kick the field goal. And then the defense gives it up. So there were hits and misses, but ultimately a lot of misses, unfortunately. The consistency wasn't there. And you brought up the point before we even got on, Nick. This is a 6-year senior quarterback. You want to see, if nothing else, you want to see that consistency. You want to not see the bad decisions and things like that. Anybody can be a little bit up and down, but you can't have the turnovers in the red zone and the different things that happen there when that's your quarterback, and who has been your quarterback since 2020. And I realize he was a backup a little bit in there, but generally speaking, yeah.
Well, I think Lob Threats here, his comment about JD really summarizes this entire team. Right?
Yes.
I think this 100%. Conversation around Jaylen Daniels, really, you can kind of just expand it to encapsulate the entire team, where I think we talked about it after the Iowa State game. We just finished the season, 12 games. I don't think KU played a complete 4-quarter complimentary football game the entire season 100%. In 12 games, right? Yeah. We had games where the offense was really good. We had games where the defense stepped up and made plays. We had individual quarters and individual drives where the offense stepped up and the defense stepped up, but it was never complimentary, right? It was never all for a complete 4 quarters of football, which I think kind of summarizes what this season was for Kansas, which was, what if, a lot of what ifs and a lot of, offense does a great job against Cincinnati, but defense can't get the stop, right? The defense against Arizona makes those plays, but there was a coaching decision late that didn't give KU a chance to win that game. Yeah. Here today, I want to talk more about the defense, but the defense holistically didn't really play that poorly. You're talking about an offense in Utah that was top 10 in the country in points per game. They just scored 51 against K-State. And you didn't play that badly. Take away a couple of plays here and there, right? So again, it's that's kind of the story of the season. I think for KU overall is just missed opportunities, what ifs, and inconsistency over the course of the entire year.
Yeah, you could have an 8-win team without much imagination, but it would require imagination, and I think that's the tough thing about this season. And we'll look back. Is I saw somebody say, this is the worst loss of the Leipold era. I don't know if it was that, but I will say that there were several games like this where you make a play here, you make a play there. And it's funny because we get to talk to Lance Leipold at press conferences. And one of the things he said pretty consistently is he's like, guys, if it was one thing, we would fix the one issue. Yeah. If it was one problem that we kept having and that was it, we would either fix the issue or fix the personnel and put somebody else in. And I think that's been the heartbreaking thing about the last 2 years, even going back to last year, was Kansas has lost, and it's been different players struggling. It's been different players not making plays. I mean, Jaylen is one of the common threads, but again, you have the drop by Emmanuel Henderson against Missouri. You have
Trey Lathan's drop pick
against Cincinnati. DJ Graham not covering well against Cincinnati.
Saeed Gibbs drop pick against Arizona.
Yeah, you've got Jaylen's mistakes today. You have, individual players, on defense trying to do too much and getting in the wrong gaps, and you get gashed against the run. It's been different guys and different things, and I think that's the frustrating thing about it. And ultimately, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit of offseason on here. That's going to be one of the things that makes this offseason so interesting. Is I do think that every single program in America audits itself at the end of the year, and they say, here's what we did well, here's what we didn't do well. Kansas is going to have to probably put the finger on some things that, hey, we didn't do this consistently well. And quite frankly, Nick, there may be some changes that either need to be made or wind up getting made because you're auditing and you're saying, hey, this kept going wrong. We do have to find a way to change this one specific thing.
All right, let's take a quick break. I want to touch a little bit more on what the defense did today. There's also a comment that I want to get to as well that we'll touch on. If you are joining the live show, feel free to leave a comment. We'll talk about it, obviously. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate those of you that have joined us here today. But we'll take a quick break, and we'll continue our conversation coming up next.
Missouri, big news. It's almost your turn to get in the game because DraftKings Sportsbook is coming to the Show Me State on December 1st. Soon you'll get fast payouts when you win, a safe and secure app that's easy to use, and promos that keep the action going all season long. No wonder it's America's top-rated sportsbook app. The countdown is on. New customers can sign up right now and score $300 in bonus bets on launch day. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KCSN. New Missouri customers sign up today and score $300 in bonus bets once we're live. That's code KCSN. The crown is yours. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply, subject to regulatory licensing requirements. Bonus bets are not withdrawable and expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
This is the Pay Podcast, a live edition of the show from David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. For the final time this season in 2025, I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner and possible member FDIC. If you're joining us live, you should be doing three things. You should like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share a comment. We've had some fantastic commenters join us here today. Really appreciate everybody that's hanging out with us on a Black Friday, right? So maybe you're, hanging out with family, doing done some shopping, whatever it may be. But thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you. There was one comment from earlier on that I wanted to kind of circle back to, sort of continuing our conversation before the break. Yeah. And I think getting more into sort of big picture stuff here. And then I want to talk about the defense too at some point. But just real quick, this came from, funnily enough, the comment is from your mom, which is not your mom, presumably. Yeah. But fun fact, after the 5 seasons, Mangino had one more win than Leipold in 5 seasons of coaching at KU. I thought for sure Leipold would have more wins. Kevin, you've also talked about the fact that in Mangino's 5th season, they went 6-6.
6-6. Yeah. So that was your one. That's your one win right there. Is that Mangino got 6-6 in year 5. And the interesting thing is, and we talked about this on the show before, people at that time, because I was the football guy for the Fog at the time. People at that time were on the boards asking, is Mangino the guy? It's great that we're no longer losing all these games as much, and we're kind of a mediocre team now, but is he really the guy that's going to take us to the next level? And the next year you go to the Orange Bowl. So I'm not saying that KU's going to the Orange Bowl next year. Please do not put on the internet that I said they're going to the Orange Bowl next year. Don't tell the newspaper that I'm mad. But no, it's in all seriousness, as much as we would all love improvement to be linear and, hey, you go from, 0 wins to 5 wins to 10 wins, and then your college football playoff. And, there are coaches like Cignetti at Indiana who kind of ruined everybody else's day with that stuff.
In this era of the transfer portal, that is something that, can be theoretically possible.
Yeah, sure.
If you hit on all your transfer portal guys.
Yeah, you hit on your portal guys. I do like some of the young talent in the program, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, I'm guessing. But generally speaking, your fortunes can change better or worse pretty quickly. I mean, think about how bad Oklahoma State was, and they hire Eric Morris. People start thinking, oh, he's going to take Mestamaker with him. And I saw somebody said the other day, after the hire was announced, Oklahoma State will go bowling in 2026. and so, that's how quickly things can change. And so the leap from going 5-7 to actually winning 8 games, winning 9 games, having a good year, it's not as big as maybe people would have thought. Whereas before you had to really, kind of build from the bottom up, and it made it a lot more difficult.
Well, and I think that's such an apt comparison with Mangino, because it really does feel like next year is sort of the make or break year for the Lance Leipold era, right? Okay, maybe not go to the Orange Bowl, but go and try to make a bowl game or win 7, 8, 9 games, right? Yeah. It feels like next year is the year that it has to happen. Otherwise it's going to be at a breaking point. So the question becomes, knowing that basically, or feeling that, right? I think I saw some comments from Lance Leipold in this post-game press conference talking about needing to be better and so on and so forth. I think he certainly feels that and recognizes that, okay, next year is sort of this make or break year.
Sure.
So the question becomes, what kind of steps can Lance Leipold and this team make over the offseason to get there, right? Doesn't mean, hey, you need to find a new coordinator possibly on the defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball, right? You're obviously going to have a new quarterback because Jaylen Daniels is gone. So you're already going to have some fresh faces on the team that are going to be playing more. But I guess what more do you think needs to be done at this stage? Obviously we're just entering into the offseason basically for Kansas, but this is arguably the most critical time of the year now.
Sure.
When it comes to college football, right? It's starting right now, basically until the start of spring ball. What are you doing to construct your roster? What are you doing to bring in guys for the start of spring leading into the next season?
Yeah, I do think, the game management coach that Joseph brings up, a lot of staffs sort of have that guy. A lot of times he's analytically inclined. I don't know if they need a game management coach or if it's just, hey, let's listen to the one we've got, type of deal. But I do think game management is going to be one of those things that's going to pop up, when they look at it and say, hey, this –
wait, your mom is back and says, I will say, Major never beat OU or Texas. Leipold did. That's true. Leipold beat both Texas and Oklahoma.
That's true. Although KU would have beaten Texas in 2007, but we're getting off track here. The interesting thing, I think, will be at defensive coordinator, because I think you saw consistent issues with that unit in terms of not being sound this year. And so is that something where when you look at it, you say, hey, it's a position coach issue? Is it something that you look at it and you say, our scheme is unsound? Is it something that you look at and say, we had a lot of sort of first-year guys in these roles this year, it'll be better next year? And the elephant in the room, Nick, is DK McDonald's signed on. And so to buy him out is a pretty significant investment.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a guaranteed 3-year deal.
I think so. Yeah. So that's the other part of this is, hey, if DK McDonald decides he wants to go back to the NFL as a position coach, whatever, and you wind up with a Jeff Grimes like situation where, I don't want to say the problem, but the person is kind of taking it off your hands where you don't have to do a buyout. That's one thing, but I do think it could be difficult if Kansas decides to go that way to find sort of that financial, to find that decision, especially since, like I said, you did have a lot of first-year guys at Kansas in those spots. A lot of guys going to come back next year, assuming they don't hit the portal.
Yeah.
I think, you look at, Blake Harrell had a really good year this year. He's going to be back at defensive tackle. I liked what I saw from Marcus Calvin, and he kind of got better over the course of the year. Leroy Harris had some tremendous moments this year. Dak Brinkley.
Leroy Harris is great today.
Yeah. Dak Brinkley is a guy that had some bright moments late in the year. Trey Lathan can come back in that linebacking core. You look at in the secondary, you can have Jaylen Todd, Saeed Gibbs, Austin Alexander back at cornerback, Taylor Davis back at safety, Lyric Rawls back at safety. And I'm not saying all these guys are coming back. I'm just saying you could theoretically return so much of what this defense is. And so there's at least a world where Kansas looks at it and says, hey, let's give him another year, put these guys in a system another year, maybe fill a hole or two through the portal. Kansas is going to go portaling for defensive tackles, certainly after losing all those senior guys in particular. Yeah. You would think that there's at least a world where they say, let's give DK another year with these guys being experienced in these roles, and maybe these things will improve. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of, I think what you described was on display today, where we saw at times the KU defense was able to make a few plays, right? They got a 4th down stop in this game. But then you think about, hey, you get sucked up on the fake quarterback run twice that burns you for 2 big touchdowns. Now, one of them, I know people.
One of them shouldn't have counted.
One of them shouldn't have counted. There was an alignment downfield that was missed by the officials, which, by the way, was kind
significantly downfield, by the way.
Yeah, which, by the way, it was kind of a weirdly officiated game. I'm not really sure I can tell you what a catch is versus what isn't a catch, because we had 2 separate reviews where I felt that it should have gone one way and it went the other way. And I was like, okay, I don't really know. You had the couple times where they stopped it for forward progress, where then they didn't stop it. KU gets a fumble at one point out with Trey Lathan. But yeah, with the defense, again, I think you kind of saw that today, where this is a Utah offense that, again, frankly, had been lighting up everybody in the Big 12 that they played, besides BYU and Texas Tech. They've been lighting up everybody they played in the Big 12. Coming off 51-point performance against Utah now, or against K-State. Now, maybe you could make the argument, okay, well, Utah kind of sleptwalked into this game, which I think there is maybe some validity to that. But this is still what has been a very potent offense for basically the entirety of conference play. And the Kansas defense, for the most part, holistically, was not bad against them, right?
Yeah.
You just gave up a couple too many big explosive plays, and again got sucked up on a couple of plays that resulted in big touchdowns for Utah. But I mean, if you were to come into this game, and so you take away the pick six from Jaylen Daniels, and honestly, if you were to take away, if you were to say they throw the flag on that illegal downfield play, the defense, that's 17 points given up, right?
Yeah.
Now, it becomes 24 if you include the play where they don't throw the flag. But even still, that's a pretty good day, I think. I would have accepted that heading into this game of saying, hey, the defense is going to give up 24 points against Utah. I would have taken that. But then you see late in the game where they need to get off the field to get the offense the ball back, and they can't do it. Utah's able to just run the clock out. So, you see kind of all aspects of that in this particular game. And MVP Incorporated says, hey, like Rawls, Lathan, and Harris, for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Harold's amazing too.
Leroy Harris is an NFL player.
Yeah.
Like full stop.
Yeah.
He just is, guys. Like he's an NFL player. I love Blake Harrell too. Like you said, Blake Harrell's great. Trey Lathan really grew into his role, I thought, over the course of the season and became, much more stable at that position. Lyric Rawls is the type of guy everybody needs, I feel like, where he's just going to come down and pop somebody, a couple times a game. Feels like a lot of teams can benefit from having a player like that. And then you mentioned the secondary as well, where, Jalen Todd has been, again, so steady this season and what he's done and what some of the roles that he's been asked to take on. I really like what I've seen from Saeed Gibbs, really, for the most part. He was kind of banged up through the middle of the year, but I like what I've seen from him a lot. I like Taylor Davis. I thought he was pretty good as well on the back end. So.
I like Saeed Gibbs a lot more inside as opposed to an outside corner.
Yeah.
And I like Austin Alexander. I mean, I've said that before. I mean, a lot of people forget this guy was a redshirt freshman out there, and a couple of the times he got beat, he was.
Well, but he also
he was up in press coverage, with no safety help. But he also made some good plays.
One of the biggest plays of the game for KU against UCF to help them win that game.
So I think Austin Alexander is going to be pretty good next year. Like I think he had moments this year, but his growth level, it kind of reminded me of the Melo Dotson, Kobe Bryant, and that, those guys would make a play, but then they get toasted early on in their career, and they kind of grew into it and became really good players.
Yeah, and honestly, I honestly agree with what KC here in the comments, his assessment is, which is Lance has the last stand next year, choose who you want to go to war with and live will die with them. I kind of agree with that, right? Like this is basically, to me, starting basically today, it's Lance Leipold needs to figure out, okay, next year is the make or break year.
Yeah.
What am I going to do, right? And I need to work with Travis Goff or work with Rob Idell or whatever to say, hey, you know what? We need to do X, Y, Z. We need to find, hire somebody in new analytics, right? Or we need to possibly make some changes at the coordinator positions or, whatever it may be. I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. I think it's spot on. It's Lance Leipold now starting right this moment, basically has the next, 3 months to figure out who is going to be with him and also what kind of roster he's going to construct in terms of entering the transfer portal and all that stuff heading into next year. And Joseph Loomis has a good question here. What does when you say make or break year next year, what does make mean next year? I agree with that assessment too, which is he says I say make a bowl game at minimum. Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to make a bowl game, right?
If you make a bowl game and you have a young quarterback, whether that's and I'm not throwing Cole Ballard out of the race. I think he does a lot of things that kind of go unnoticed. But if you have Zeke Marshall or David McComb as your quarterback, you've got sort of that young guy developing, and you make a bowl game. I think that's a make.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Just make a bowl game. I guess we'll see how things unfold, but make a bowl game to me is the minimum that you have to do, right? You can't afford to have another year where you don't make a bowl game.
Yeah.
That'd be 3 straight seasons after what you had in 2023 with the 9-4 year. So yeah, to me, you absolutely have to make a bowl game. That is completely, at bare minimum, you have to do that. So, also, Desperado says there it is. Kevin predicted an Orange Bowl appearance next year. So,
print it up.
Maybe clip this. Clip this and save it in the drafts.
There's an episode of The Simpsons where they changed an interview of his around, and you could see like the clock behind him, like going forward and back around or whatever. So if you clip up certain parts of my interview, you can say like, they are going Orange Bowl, or whatever, and we can.
Is this
do
2006?
What
is going on here? Yeah. I feel like we need to take a break to sort of reorient ourselves. So we'll do that. We're going to take one more short break, then we'll share some final thoughts from the booth for this season, and that's coming up next.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show. Final one of the season for KU football here at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium as Kansas loses to Utah 31-21. Another 5-7 season for the Jayhawks. I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. If you have not already, please go ahead and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Like the video, share a comment. You can also subscribe on audio if you're listening after the fact. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And trust me, this is not the end of the live shows. In fact, we're going to be live again in just a couple of days when KU plays UConn at Allen Fieldhouse. You can expect us to be live after that game. Talk about KU and UConn. Also going to have a show later this weekend coming up. Get a little more of Kevin's thoughts on the players era for KU basketball. So the live shows will continue, which is why you need to stay subscribed on our YouTube channel, because we'll be going live after big KU basketball games over the course of the season with KU UConn. KU Missouri is TBD on that one next Sunday. Potentially, we'll see. But certainly we'll have plenty of coverage of KU basketball coming up over the course of the remainder of this year and obviously into the spring. And fellas, guys, it looks like Kansas basketball may have a squad. So yeah. I'll just leave it at that for now. As it pertains to this game here today, Kansas' season comes to a close here at the booth, 31-21 against Utah. Some really good conversation, I thought, but right before the break, kind of about where to go from here for KU. And, you know, I think we talked a lot about the defense. So going back to the offense, let's kind of wrap it up with that, where you know for a fact you're going to have a new quarterback. Right?
Yep.
I think there's been moments, depending on where you were at over the past couple seasons, where, hey, was Jaylen Daniels going to transfer? There was that whole stuff that ended up being totally fake. But now you know for sure, okay, you're going to have a new quarterback. And, guys, the reality is Lance Leipold has had Jaylen Daniels as a quarterback his entire tenure.
Yeah.
Right? So this is also going to be sort of a new era for Lance Leipold and what that looks like. So, obviously, you had Zeke Marshall today, ends up with 5 carries, 36 yards. He's a dynamic player. You mentioned it, Kevin. You wouldn't write off Cole Ballard either as sort of just that, you know, gritty guy that's never going to quit. He's a competitor. And obviously David McComb. And then, of course, you could even consider going into the transfer portal, right? That's obviously something that's a possibility as well.
I do not believe they'll do that, though.
Okay.
I think that they like their quarterback. I think they like their quarterbacks in the room right now.
So you are confident that the starting quarterback on opening day 2026 for KU football is currently on the roster?
That would be my prediction, yes. Okay. It would be that it will be one of the guys currently on the roster.
Blind Justice asked, what was attendance today? You had it, Kevin. It was 30. It was officially announced as 32,000.
Just shy of 33
yeah,
is what it was announced.
And honestly, I will –
Great attendance.
Exactly.
Great attendance.
I think that honestly gives us a good opportunity to kind of mention that KU fans showed up today. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot more than I expected.
More than I expected, too, especially since you didn't have students, obviously, with it being Black Friday and everything. But, I mean, you looked at the seats along the west side, and they were pretty filled up over here. The bowl filled up pretty well. And then I actually thought a lot of the east stands actually came together too. So I don't know if there were actually 33,000. Obviously, obviously that counts people who bought tickets and didn't show up. But I do think that the attendance was pretty strong, and I thought the fans brought a lot of energy as well, Nick. I agree. And I want to say, too, we talk about this, but there are times when you don't put fans in the stands and people make fun of a fan base or whatever because they didn't do that. I want to say to kind of counteract that, the people who showed up today, great job. I mean, all of you guys who came out and showed up and supported these seniors and were out here today, you did a fantastic job. So
100% agree with that. And yeah, I mean, my expectations were fairly conservative heading into this game. You know, you had the outcome against Iowa State. Obviously, this is a Black Friday game, 11 a.m. You know, Thanksgiving weekend. Students obviously are not going to be here because they're back home for break. But I was pretty impressed, honestly, with KU fans. So if you were here, shout out to you. I thought you guys did a great job, and kudos to you guys for coming out and continuing to support. And hopefully that is a message that is received by this staff and program of the fans will continue to support you. You have to give them a reason to continue to support, right? Like you have to show something. So hopefully that's a positive as well. MVP Incorporated asked, if you had to bet, who would you say the starter would be, at least odds-wise?
This is a tough one because, and I'm not trying to give too long of an answer here, but Cole Ballard is the program guy. They know him really well. He knows the offense. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He gets guys aligned and in the right spots. Zeke Marshall, obviously, everybody loves how dynamic he is with his legs. Yep. But also think, Nick, the way that Zabrowski called the offense this year didn't use as much of Jaylen Daniels' legs as, say, Andy Kotelnicki did. With Andy Kotelnicki, Jaylen was more of an option quarterback, which I really think played into Jaylen's strengths, and it is kind of an undertold part of Jaylen's tenure here. But either way, the thing that's going to be interesting to me is at practice, the quarterbacks aren't full contact, right? So you're not going to have Zeke look as good at practice during a competition as other guys who are going to throw the ball better. David McComb, I think, is the most gifted thrower of the three, and he's a pretty good athlete. And so I realize I didn't answer your question as far as odds at all, but I honestly think it's a legitimate 3-horse race. And I think people would be crazy to dismiss any one of the three, because I think all three of them have pros where if you said right now, okay, Zeke won the race, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. If you said David McComb won it, I'd be like, all right, I get that. If you said Cole Ballard, I could see that. And so I think it's going to be a legitimate competition. I just think that it's going to come down to who plays the best at practice leading into it. And honestly, Zeke's best path to it might be, on Saturdays. If one of the guys, comes out, whether it's McComb or Cole Ballard wins the job and they don't play well in that opening game, and Zeke gets the handoff at that point, Zeke might never give that job back. And I think that may wind up being his path as well. But either way, there's nothing quite like an offseason when you have a full-fledged quarterback competition. And I expect this to be a full quarterback competition. I don't think any one of those three candidates is just there for show, right? I could see any one of them winning it.
I think right now on November 28th, 3:31 p.m.
He's going to give the odds.
Less than an hour. Less than an hour after the end of the 2025 season. I would say Cole Ballard is the favorite, I think, probably followed by Zeke Marshall, then David McComb, but we'll see. I mean, I think it's very close. I think kind of what you outlined is probably correct. We'll see. Obviously, so much could change between now and spring ball and how that goes, and then even going into the summer and fall ball before you get to the next season. So a lot could change, but I think
guys get better too. Yeah. Zeke threw 3 passes.
Zeke threw 3 passes.
Completed all 3 of them.
He threw against Fresno State and Wagner, I think, were the 2 games where he attempted passes. Cole Ballard obviously attempted some passes too, which he
threw a touchdown last week.
Threw a touchdown against Iowa State. Yeah, that's true. I believe Wagner and Fresno State were the 2 games where Zeke did attempt to pass. Is my
we shall see.
Kevin's doing some live.
It looks like it was just Wagner.
Okay, he threw all 3 passes against Wagner.
Yeah,
got it. So there you go. So that's what I would say. But the other aspect of this that we haven't even touched on is the fact that your offense is going to look a lot different next year.
Yes.
Too, because you look at the offensive line. Bryce Foster is gone. Kobe Baines is gone. Nolan Gorsica, who was your de facto 6th offensive lineman, and honestly, down the stretch of the season, you're starting tight end. It felt like at times.
Enrique Cruz.
He's gone. Enrique Cruz is going to be gone. So you'll have Calvin Clements, and then I think that's about it in terms of starters.
Amir Herring.
Amir Herring. Yeah, Amir Herring.
And Amir Herring got a lot better over the course of the year. I thought he was playing pretty well.
Tavaki Tuakolavatu has some eligibility.
He does.
But again, you're looking at having to replace essentially 3 starters from your offensive line. And then that's not even considering that you're also going to be trying to replace your entire running back production, basically, with both Le'Shawn Williams and Daniel Highshaw moving on. You have Harry Stewart, who we both really like, and there's some young guys that I know you really like.
Justin Thurman looked really good when he had a chance to get some run earlier. Johnny Thompson had gotten some action as well. I like the guys in this recruiting class. Running back is one of those positions you can play early at. Remember, Devin Neal didn't start right away, but by about mid-season
he was
running back one as a freshman. And I'm not saying KU has running back one, but if they can hold on to KD Jones, which that could be one of the guys still to watch in this recruiting class, and you bring in Corey Amakari as well. Both of those guys are really, really good and might be able to give you something as a freshman, might hop into that competition as well. Plus, Nick, I would expect them to go portal and find somebody. Yeah. Lance has typically gone portal for a running back, whether it's Kai Thomas, whether it's Le'Shawn or Savion Morrison.
My goat. Yeah, my goat, Savion Morrison.
He loves it. KD Jones is awesome.
Yeah, KD Jones.
He is really good.
I remember when he flipped to KU from Oklahoma State. The game before, he had like 550 yards and 8 touchdouns. I think in his high school. Crazy.
He's super explosive, and I like KD Jones a lot. He'll be one to watch over the next signing days on Wednesday. He'll be one to watch, and KD Jones is a home run hitter at running back. He's one of those guys that can go to the house at any given time. Like I said, Justin Thurman's another guy that I would keep an eye on, and then they'll go get a transfer portal guy. And then, to your point, you're talking about all these guys. Tight end, you're pretty much starting over.
You have to hit the portal there too.
Yeah. Carson Brune will be back from being hurt, and that's it pretty much. Jaden Ham played a little bit this year, but not much. You do bring in 2 high school tight ends. One of those guys may wind up in your rotation, whether that's Kevin Sullivan or Jack Utes. And then wide receiver, Nick, is the other interesting part. You bring back Cam Pickett, Emmanuel Henderson, gone. Canty, gone. Wentz, gone. Yeah. Keaton Kubeka got some action this year, but wide receiver, I would expect Kansas to go fairly heavy into the transfer portal as well. And you would hope somebody from that freshman class of receivers would kind of step up and make a case to go into that rotation as well.
Shout out to Benjamin, who says, defense is a lot of upside if we can retain some key pieces. Thanks for doing the post-game shows all season long. Rock chalk. Rock chalk to you, Benjamin. Shout out to you. Roger Gilbertson says, any assistant coaching changing predictions? Those are always so tough to predict, I feel like, especially, again, we're literally an hour into essentially the offseason, basically. So really, really hard to guess, right? You think back to KU's had some guys go to the NFL. They had Fuchs go to the NFL, obviously, it kind of comes down to, do you think any guys might be leaving for whatever reason or whatever it may be, right? So really hard to tell at that point. In terms of linebackers, Blind Justin asked how many linebackers do you get in the portal? That's an interesting one because presumably you'll have to Trey Lathan. You can get him back. Obviously, we'll see, right? Because that's the thing. When you talk about guys being back, you just have to, I think in this era, you just have to go into it with the understanding that some of those guys are going to transfer out.
Sip can potentially come back, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Because he didn't play enough this year. So Joseph Sip would be a guy. And so if
season derailed.
If Sip is able to come back, you would probably only get one in the portal, I would guess. Remember, John Kamara played a bunch to start the year. And then once they got healthier at linebacker, it got a little bit less. But he is a big-time talent. I think they said that he was the most explosive athlete in the program for his size range. And so having that kind of athlete out there as he continues to pick up the X's and O's. And remember, John was like a corner as like a high school, like freshman or sophomore.
Yeah, there's a
go ahead.
Yeah, there's a crazy picture of him where it's like he looks like he weighs like 150 pounds as like a sophomore. Yeah. And obviously he blossomed.
He was more of like a safety as like a junior, and then was finally like a linebacker as a high school senior. My point is just that he hasn't played linebacker that long. And so he's somebody that you could expect maybe to make a jump. I know at times they've really liked what they've seen from Logan Brantley in the program. And
he's obviously been here for several years now.
And then, the young guys, when you look at those guys, Malachi Curvey, I think
he had a really nice play on special teams.
Yeah, has a lot of potential. He would be a guy that I think I would keep an eye on if you're looking for somebody from this freshman class that redshirted this year to maybe take a leap as a redshirt freshman. Curvey would be among my candidates where I'd say keep an eye on this guy through the spring.
Yeah, and we'll have plenty more time to do sort of a more in-depth autopsy of the season plus the roster, right? Yeah. I mean, basically once you get into the second week of December, it's kind of open season with the transfer portal, so there's going to be obviously tons of updates there, tons of guys that KU's going to be going after and trying to make plays with. So yeah, this turns into the biggest offseason of Lance Leipold's tenure at Kansas.
Sure.
No question about that. In terms of what he's going to do, just staff-wise, in terms of how they approach the transfer portal, this is a huge year, a huge offseason, I should say, for Kansas heading into 2026. 5-7 for 2025, second consecutive year of Kansas going 5-7. They miss a bowl game again, so their season ends here today on the field against Utah, 31-21. Kevin, just real quick, any final thoughts before we wrap up the show?
No, like I said, it was a fitting end of the season, just in that it ended kind of the way that Kansas has lost over the course of the year. When you look at the mistakes, when you look at the defense not being able to get a stop when they absolutely had to have one late, when you look at their inability to score in the red zone at times, and the just general inconsistency that they had this year, I think it was a difficult game to watch, but ultimately was a lot like what had kind of tripped up Kansas all year. And so you wind up 5-7 in a year where you possibly could have won 8, could have won more, but ultimately you are what your record says you are, and you're going to go into the offseason and try and get back to a bowl next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what sucks about this year and last year is you're 5-7, but as you said earlier, it doesn't take that much of an imagination to envision KU winning 7-8 games in 2024 and 2025. But as you said, you are what your record says you are, and so Kansas missing a bowl game for the second straight year is going to set them up for a pivotal offseason in 2025 and 2026. We're going to be continuing our coverage of KU basketball as they are getting their season underway. Big week for them in Las Vegas at the Players Era Tournament. We're going to have more reaction to that coming up later this week. We're also going to be live on Tuesday night. It'll be another late one because it's another 8 o'clock tip-off for KU and UConn. But we'll be live on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN to recap Kansas and UConn from Allen Fieldhouse. And the non-conference schedule continues for KU. They're going to play Missouri next Sunday. They have NC State as well coming up on the schedule in the middle of December. So lots of fun hoops coming our way, and we'll be talking about it. We'll be covering it, and we'll also spend plenty of time over the course of the offseason breaking down KU football as well, leading into the spring. So plenty of reasons. All that is to say, you should absolutely be subscribed on Apple, Spotify. If you're on YouTube, you should be subscribed there at Kansas Jayhawks, KCSN. Shout out to Lob there. Thanks, guys. Rock Chalk to you.
Thanks to all of you guys as well.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, throughout this entire season, obviously it's been another year that was somewhat frustrating. I guess I should say somewhat very frustrating for Kansas football, but those of you that continue to tune in and show your support over the course of this year, we really appreciate you. And yes, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, as Blind Justice says. Rock Chalk, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody as well. Enjoy some time with your family. That's what I'm about to do. I'm literally going to be driving straight home after we finish this to go spend some time with my family this weekend as well. Kevin spent some great time playing Oklahoma State Mojang. Is that what that was?
Yeah, Mahjong. It was interesting. My in-laws are. My sister-in-law played at Oklahoma State softball-wise, so she brought a Mahjong set home that she had made that has Oklahoma State keys or whatever, and I used it to clean up. So I showed him what a Jayhawk can do playing that Oklahoma State Mahjong. So
love that. And love all of you guys for supporting us. Appreciate you, Kate, for joining us as well. Thank you to everyone that tuned in today. We'll talk to you again very soon. And we'll be live on Tuesday night for KU and UConn. But until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. For the final time from David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium in 2025. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.